else maybe individually come up with some specific questions. But, and again, we will have time, again, I'm here for the duration here. We'll have time to maybe do something that people are having a lot of problems with to make sure that we'll get it. But what I want to remind everybody that's here, that, this is a difficult test. It covers a lot of material. You need to know that material well and then be able to apply it, including these extra questions, which there's some questions on there. It's like, we didn't talk about hypovolemic shock. How are we supposed to know about that, Mike? Because it's a question on there that I expect you to know, and we have all this time to find out about it, okay? That's why that's valid. It doesn't have to be in my lecture slide. It's in the extra questions. All that's valid. And so when you're doing this, and again, even people can put it up here. We can put the baroreceptor response. We can put the EKG with all the things up there. While people are practicing, you can put it up there and we can keep it. But let's look at the things you really have to concentrate on. You should go through all those study questions. Again, you don't have to answer every study question with a paragraph like some people do. You want to make sure you basically get those points. But especially, as I said earlier on, there's several on smooth muscles, which I don't have a lecture on. Not a lecture at all. But there are ones on slow wave versus pacemaker potential. Others are basically compare and contrast, looking at major differences between cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. Where that is, well, first of all, you can find out most of it just the internet type stuff. But the end of chapter 12 of the book, there's a table and there's a couple pages on it. It's up to you to look that up. Hey, I've got the book up here for people to borrow if you haven't done that already. That's valid. There are questions on that without a doubt. Okay? 5-6 points at least that are on that information that we didn't specifically cover, but it's there. You can check with me if you're getting the right information. That's fine. So make sure you do that. The other thing, which are not on the study questions, but are valid, they were in the PowerPoints, they are in the handouts, we've added the heart valve problems, okay, the stenotic and leaky heart valves, and including the sounds associated with them, lub, whistle, dub. You have to be able to recognize, if I give you lub, whistle, dub, where the problem is. Now, and I can help people on this. There's I sort of went through it once. There's sort of a strategy that you can use so you don't have to memorize that table. And hey, if you want to memorize a table, memorize a table. I just think it's sort of crazy to do it that way. But it's up to you. But I'll have at least one question on, lub, swish, dub, where's the problem? And you should be able to determine that. I can show you, and I will at some point tonight too, for people who have trouble, how you can literally follow what you know is causing the sounds. Follow the blood through the heart, and you'll be able to figure out which one it is from that, which is more, I think, more what you want to get out of it, right? You don't want to memorize something. You want to know, basically where the problem is just by the flow of blood. And so we can do that. But you are going to need to know that. So even though they're not specific on the study question. So I want to make sure you do that. Also, on the PowerPoint handout, I've included all these, abnormal EKGs, even more than they were on the study question. The study questions, one I had tachycardia, bradycardia, and that second-degree block. But when you look back at these things, I also have, this ST elevation from the myocardial infection. I have PVCs. I have a couple others. You need to know those, okay? And that's that one. Again, as I've said, the extra questions, which basically have some applications to what we did and are really the critical thinking, that's what you want to make sure that you get before you leave. If you already get it, and we'll talk about it, then you're going to be fine. But you've got to get what I mentioned before, this idea that a lot of the test is going to be based upon your understanding, not of just the baroreceptor response to low blood pressure, which is a 14-point question, including all the information is there. You put that down first. It's applications of that. And that's what that sheet, if you've looked at it, which I hope you have, and I hope you have it here, or you start looking at it tonight, is basically involving the idea that you can take blood medication to lower your blood pressure, and affecting one branch of this. Whenever that happens, your baroreceptor response says, hey, we just lowered blood pressure, let's try to raise it. Okay? The drug wins, and again, I'll do this specifically. It's not like, okay, well now we compensated, we have a high blood pressure. The drug wins, but the other side of the coin, if you have alpha blockers and you have this response, your beta response is going to be elevated. If you have beta blockers and you lower blood pressure, your alpha side is going to overcompensate or potentially overcompensate, and that's what you're looking for. If you get that concept, you're going to do well in those questions, and you're going to understand overall, when you're looking for symptomology and drug side effects that are listed, you're going to understand why. Okay, the body's sort of trying to counteract. It doesn't know that you did something good. Its natural response of the baroreceptors are just like blood pressure got lower, blood pressure raised, and it's going to try to compensate. Again, most of the time, it's within a range, which is fine, and then the drug medication is working. But the idea is, when you're looking at symptoms, why is this person having tachycardia? When I gave him the alpha blocker, you're going to be like, oh, okay. We blocked, or we blocked the alpha blockers, so that caused vasodilation, lower blood pressure. But the drug doesn't block beta, and we try to compensate. We're going to hit beta and cause high heart rate to try to compensate. So when you start to do that, you're going to start to understand sort of the system. So that's really important. So you want to do that. You want to make sure also. Remember, I had a chart on the difference between epinephrine and norepinephrine with alpha, beta 1, and beta 2. I throw that basically on your test too, so you can understand. It's not going to be an essay question, but you're going to use that to make sure you don't. The key with this is that that's why I give you, I'll give you really almost unlimited time. There's a lot of information in your brain, and if you're trying to answer a question, sort of remembering like this, it's probably not that good. Probably just, if you've just been practicing, which I hope you have with this, you've already going to have the baroreceptor response, boom, on your back page. Go ahead and put the chart, if that's the way you remember, between the difference between epi and norepi when you're looking at the questions. Don't try to do it in your head. You got time. You got 3 hours, okay? You're going to have to sort of calm down and sort of do it then. Same thing, really, really important. And again, by sometime tonight, somebody will do it, or we'll do it up there. Remember the EKG. We don't just need to know the PQ or ST. We don't just need to know AV nodal delay and ventricular systole and diastole, which you do need to know. We need to know, basically, where does the first heart sound correspond on that? Where is isovolumic ventricular contraction? Remember, basically, at R and the end of T, there were 4 bullet points, right, that you want to be able to know. Again, essay question, no. Multiple choice questions based on whether you know those things, yes. And so it's another thing probably that you want to be able to practice writing down, and potentially write down on your test. So when I'm asking, EDV corresponds to where, you're going to sort of know it. And again, the baroreceptor, when you have the cardiac output equation, if you've been doing that, that's sort of the key. So I think I've hit most things to start with here.
For the EKG, you said we are responsible for like the P wave, the QRS wave,
and T wave, and yeah, I mean, yeah, but you definitely, yeah, I mean, that's just the basic, right? You need to know what they do, okay? You need to know the 3 things I put on the PowerPoint: AV nodal delay, where systole occurs, and where diastole occurs. But the additional things are those, when we did it on the board, those 4 bullet points. Isovolumic ventricular contraction, corresponding to the first heart sound, corresponding to the closing of the AV valves. That's the end of diastole. That's at R, those 4 points. And then you have corresponding ones at the end of T. So you are going to, again, not an essay question, but you're going to be answering those questions on the test.
I know you specifically went over those, but like the P wave, that's atrial systole. So
Not systole. No, I mean, that's the thing. The events, the electro events, if we put this up there, we can do this one before you sort of go on. At PQRST, P, QRS, and I know that we're supposed to go down sometimes, but I just don't. T. It's like I can't draw perfect. Okay, this is measuring just electroactivity. We're underneath, we're showing corresponding events of the heart, but this is electroactivity. So this is not atrial systole, this is just what? What is it? No, I'm talking about the P wave itself. Depolarization of atria. That's the electroactivity spreading through the atria. Now, if you look, and you can even look in the book, atrial systole is sort of corresponding to right after that, but we're not even going to draw that because it messes us up. Basically, this precedes the contraction. But all this is the electroactivity going in, so it's the depolarization of the atria. And we're not even going to put that there. QRS represents the depolarization of the ventricle, followed by ventricular systole, and that one I do put on. And that's why ventricular systole, which is corresponding to after the electroactivity goes in, this segment is basically where it's going to contract, and that's ventricular systole. Now, the T wave represents what?
Ventricular repolarization.
Yeah, it's sort of a resetting of the ventricles, ventricular repolarization. And that's why it sort of makes sense that basically systole sort of ends there. And where systole ends, of course, what begins? Diastole. And what's happening during diastole? Well, no. Be careful of that, because during diastole, it's not isovolumic contraction relaxation is 1 point. Okay, this is diastole. This is where it's filling. This is where it's ejecting blood. Okay, this whole period here. And again, the third thing as we're going through this is, as far as the major segments that I want us to know are the AV nodal delay. And AV nodal delay corresponds to what? Okay, P to Q, AV nodal delay. Again, some books will have slight differences here, but for me, those are the three major things as far as what segments I want us to know of events or of facts which are related to the EKG. EKG, just electroactivity spreading through parts of the heart. It reaches the skin, and we amplify it and detect it to monitor what's the events of the heart that it corresponds to. Okay, so far so good. Okay, that's sort of how you do it. I think you draw it, you make sure you know what these are, you make sure you put these in the right place and what's happening then. Okay, now then, again, I don't even have the picture up here, but we don't really need it. We sort of have this idea of let's relate, and that's why we can kind of put our heart in here. Okay, and this obviously. Is I guess this is left, right? Left atrium, right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. And between, again, the atrium and the ventricles are what?
AV valves.
Okay, AV valves. Okay, the left one is actually a special one called? Semilunar. Mitral valve. Okay, now, but the next part is, when we're talking about from the ventricles to the corresponding, and again, it's hard to draw these arteries, like the aorta or pulmonary artery, okay, those have valves to prevent backflow, and those are the semilunar valves. Okay, so actually, let's do this together. Let's go ahead and fill that in together. And also, we can use this to do the heart problem ones. And I'll show you a trick if you don't feel like memorizing a table, how you can actually use this. And actually, I think what it does when you do it this way, what I'll show you, you actually start to really understand this blood flow versus just saying, here's a list of the blood flows here, here, and here. And you start to get an idea with it. So everyone, we got that. Okay, so to start doing this part, and also let's go ahead and, well, we can put this now. Cardiac output equals what? Times. Stroke volume equals what? And EDV stands for what? And ESV and systolic. Sort of like what we have in minus what is left after we contract is, again, what we eject. Okay, so let's start here. We're going to, again, all this is, it follows what we did up there in the figure here. Remember that circle? It's kind of going through the stages. That's kind of what we did here. We'll kind of start just with this picture overall. And so what we're going to start with is sort of, we've been going, we're going to the, we're getting near the end of diastole, okay? The end of diastole, which is basically approaching R. And so we've been relaxing, filling up with blood. Okay, and that's where we're going to start. And so we're at the end of diastole, so now we're at the very beginning of systole. And so now the ventricles are going to contract, right? That's what systole is. So as the very beginning of systole, we're going to squeeze this. Okay, we're not going to change any volume yet. We're only going to squeeze it enough to do what? AV valves close. And when AV valves close, what do we hear? Love. Okay? Does everyone kind of get that? We feel now we're going to contract. Before we're able to pump anything out, which will be next, we just got enough pressure to close those valves. Okay? And so we call that basically, and we'll put it over there, since we haven't changed the volume yet, it's isovolumic ventricular contraction, the very beginning of contraction before we've changed volume. And that corresponds to the closing of the AV valves and therefore love. So those three things just go together. Okay? They all go together and they all fit on this, and they fit where? R. Okay?
The beginning of R?
Well, R is a specific point. Yeah, so it is, between, this is an R and T segment, and R, that's the very beginning of systole, right? This whole thing's systole, and so that's what we're talking about. The very beginning of systole, which is R itself, that point, corresponds to those three things. Isovolumic ventricular contraction, the very beginning of contraction, and as we said, that corresponds to AV valves closing and first heart sound. Yeah, we'll get to that next. Closing and first heart sound.
Which is love.
Which is love. Okay? Now, and so we follow this. Okay, so we did that, right? Now we're gonna continue squeezing, and as we continue systole, what's gonna happen? We're gonna be ejecting the blood. Okay, that's systole. We eject the blood out. Okay, now we did it. Now as soon as that happens, okay, as soon as we're sort of done with systole, the end of systole, basically, we're going to have to do what? We're going to relax. At the very, very, very beginning of relaxation, when the ventricles are starting to relax, before any blood can come in, the very first thing that's going to happen is what? The semilunar valves are going to shut to prevent backflow. And when that happens, second heart sound dub. And so we have all those three things that fit together. Okay, the very beginning of diastole relaxation, isovolumic ventricular relaxation, corresponds again to the closing of the and dub, second heart sound. And that corresponds to what? Where on this EKG?
The beginning of T.
The end of, well, T. T. Okay, because that is the end of systole and the beginning of diastole, right where it starts to open, to relax. So that's why, R and the end of, R and T, and so beginning and the end of this segment, so to speak, that's where these events are happening, specifically at that point. And so, again, run out, but it's isovolumic ventricular relaxation, or diastole, either one, depending on what you see. And again, the very beginning of diastole, that's when we're going to have the semilunar close, which is the second heart sound. Okay, so all of those three events go together. Okay, even without putting it on here, they should, if you start to see it, make sense. The very beginning of these things are when the valves close, and the valves closing correspond to heart sounds. So all we're doing is putting those events which will go together, but actually showing where that corresponds to the electrical activity of the EKG. They all are corresponding, they're going together, but they're calling it R, which is the beginning of systole, and T, which is kind of the beginning of diastole, the end of systole. So the only two involve this. Okay, so again, and when this one fits by EDV and ESV, fits by the name, as long as you remember what they are. And so the end diastolic volume is how much volume we have at the end of diastole. Where is the end of diastole?
R.
R. End of diastole, beginning of systole. So that's EDV. Okay? Then we're going to contract, and we want to know how much is left at the end of systole, the end systolic volume. Where is the end of systole? T, right? Systole, here's the end of it. That's the EKG. Okay? The normal one. And then you can look at the abnormal ones, tachycardia, bradycardia, all those ones, and see the differences. But as far as the basic, all these events that are associated with the, with the EKG that I want you to know where they correspond, that's sort of what you want to practice doing. Not an essay, but you're going to need it.
And the abnormal EKG that we're responsible for are only the ones on the PowerPoint?
Yeah. And that's all, yeah, only ones in the PowerPoint. Which, well, it's PowerPoint, I have it in your handout too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're in both. Yes, sir.
The way you drew it,
Yeah, that's I'm starting to have a little problem there, yeah. So I'm having a heart attack what, around here or up there? Now if we have this, you know, if you have, speaking of that, if you have something like this, but instead of looking like this segment looks like this. What is that a symptom of?
Wrinkle back.
No. We have what? An elevated ST.
Oh, it's a big march.
Okay, that's a sign that there's been damage. That's a sign that you've had a heart attack. Okay, again, all these are, you got to review. I mean, I hope you have nothing else to do for the next 5 days. Okay, this is all studying all this stuff. Okay, if we had all these closer together, it would be, you know, at a certain level. What might it be? If they were really close together, is that low or high heart rate? If these R's are close together, which could be if it's over 100. Tachycardia. Okay, what if they're spread out too far? Bradycardia. What if you're looking through these and you actually see, when you're looking at the AV nodal delay, you see sort of a level like this, and the next one it increases, and the next one increases, and then you have a drop QRS.
Winkle
back. Okay, second degree AV block. Okay, that's the AV blocks. We're losing sort of the distribution between one and the other. So those are some of the major ones. Okay, you can look at the others. I think there's just 2 more. I mean, we sort of know, you know, fibrillation. Okay, that's like that. Okay, that's not what you want. Basically, this to look like. Okay, you want those. You don't want something like all of a sudden if you got like. Well, actually, we should get a P wave and then. Okay, that's sort of ventricular fibrillation. You want a defibrillator or say goodbye. Yeah.
Is the elevated ST taking the heart contracts and just stays there?
It's actually, again, remember, this is electroactivity. And so the heart is trying to repolarize, but because we have damage there, it's taking a longer time to get through the damaged area. And that's why you have this elevated ST, just for you know, purposes. And again, I want to remind you though, if you look up myocardial infarction in different EKGs, there's like 10 different kinds of EKGs that might be some sort of heart attack, and you can actually localize where it is. All EKG stuff, crazy complex. We're just getting a hint of about 4 or 5 of them. Any questions about the EKG? Do you want to do a little heart valve stuff? Heart valve stuff's fun. Okay? I like this heart valve stuff now. So, the first thing you have to do, because we're going to relate, at least when I'm doing it, trying to figure out the sounds and what it relates to, I actually do it here. I use this too and follow, kind of like we were following there. But now, of course, we're talking about, we're listening to the valves, and we already know where love dove is, right? We already just did love dove. But if there's a problem, we're going to hear a heart murmur. And so the first thing is, you have to just basically know the 2 types that we deal with. And we deal with what? We deal with stenoic. And again, I'm just going to put leaky. Okay, which can have regurgitation back. So for stenoic, it's what? What's the problem here in general? The valve doesn't open all the way. Okay, it's basically the problem. We're not talking about it closing. We're talking about not, when it's not opening all the way. It's calcified. That usually happens, again, older individuals, they just develop this calcification. So it's not going to open all the way. So when blood is flowing through, and that's the key, that will help us do this. That means anytime you have any kind of these valve problems, you're going to hear some sort of sound because it's turbulence, some sort of murmur. But the idea is when blood is flowing through a stenoic valve, that's when you're going to hear the sound because that's when you're squishing it. But you're going to hear, at least by the analogy here, they produce slightly different sounds. Our overall, we're going to call this kind of sound a whistle. Again, if you go online to the site, you'll see, it doesn't sound like a whistle, but it sounds a different pitch than leaky one will do. But for us, for the test, it's a whistle, okay? So a stenoic valve means when blood is flowing through the valve, you're going to hear a whistle, okay? So you're going to hear a whistle, again, anyone put this, when blood is flowing through valve, because that will help us. Okay? Now, for the leaky one, the problem is what? The valve, I can make it a little bit better. The valves don't close all the way. Okay? So they don't close all the way, or there's some sort of problem here, and so you can get backflow. And that backflow then is going to be swish. So if you look at this, what's going to happen is you're going to have it close, at least most of the way, and as soon as something closes, do we hear something? Heart sound. Okay? You're going to have the heart sound followed by a swish. Okay? Because it closes, you know, to some extent, you're going to hear the heart sound, either lub-dub, depending where it is, and then you're going to hear the swish. Okay? So again, the problem is, again, it doesn't close. And then once you do this, it will do it. You'll see it's pretty easy. Doesn't close completely, or, you know, you can talk in different ways, but the blood will leak back to the previous chamber.
So backflow, is that what you're talking about? Backflow.
Backflow, yeah. Okay? The valve doesn't close completely. Blood leaks back to the previous chamber. Either it leaks back into the atrium or back into the ventricles, depending on which set of valves you have. The key will be, okay, that you will hear the heart sound, that appropriate heart sound, followed by swish. Because it's going to close, we'll hear the heart sound, and then you're going to hear the swishing back through to the previous chamber, whichever one it is. So, with that, we can come up with any of them, okay? And I can do it two ways, okay? You can give me a problem, and we'll hear the sound, or we can take a sound and we'll figure out the problem. I don't care which one. Which one do you want? Yeah, we'll do both. Okay, you want the sound, okay, so give me a sound. Love what? Let's do a lub, whistle, dub. Okay, so we have lub, whistle, dub. Okay, lub is always starting in the same place, right? You always want to start the same place, kind of as we started there. You want to start right when the ventricle is going to contract, right? That's where we're going to start from, because lub is where it starts out, right? And so we hear a lub, okay? So we hear lub, and lub is closing again. This is closing of the AV valves. Okay, now we hear now if this was a leaky AV valve, what would we hear? We don't hear that, do we? So the idea is that thing closed. Fine. Okay, as soon as it closes now, I mean, that was the initial part, right? Closing of the AV. Now what are we going to do? What is the ventricle going to do?
Relax.
No, we haven't relaxed yet.
Oh.
We just closed and closed the AV valves. It's going to inject the blood through what? Semilunar valves. Stenoic semilunar valve, okay? So, because remember, you're going to hear, for a stenoic one, you hear the whistle as the blood is flowing through. So the idea is, here, this valve closed, lub, that thing was fine. Now we're ejecting the blood. The next step, it's going through the semilunar valves. That's when we're hearing a whistle. And then they shut fine, okay? You know, we're not dealing, you know, they shut fine, and so we hear a dub. We don't hear anything after that, and we do it again. So lub, whistle, dub will correspond, this will correspond to a stenoic, one of them, obviously we don't know which one, semilunar valve. And then, so we're having trouble getting the blood out, but then when we relax, it shuts fine. And again, dub is closing of the semilunar valve. Remember, we only have 4 of these that we have, and you can memorize it if you want, but I actually like this better because you're starting to see the flow, okay? And you kind of see, this happens, then that, then that. Question?
Yeah, I was just wondering about the anatomy of the heart. Where exactly are you showing the semilunar valves?
I can't draw it here. I mean, in other words, because I just don't have it. The ventricles were pumping out to the arteries, so it's between the arteries and the pulmonary aorta and the ventricle. So it is up top, but it's like hard to. I mean, it's just hard for me to draw it. Yes.
Would we do a leaky semilunar valve? That's what I thought.
That's why.
Well, leaky is going to be swish. So you have to make sure you know this. So once you know it's swish or that, you're already going to know which kind. You're just trying to localize it. Okay. But what do you want to do? You want to do a.
It would be lub swish dub.
Okay. No. Let's find out. Let's say what do we. So we're going to go from that. We're going to try a leaky semilunar. Okay, let's do that.
Wait, so is it the semilunar valve that's actually making that?
Yes. Over here, it's because the semilunar valve is stenoic,
Yeah.
so as you're ejecting blood through that narrow opening, you're hearing the whistle, because you're not efficiently getting it out. Okay? So in a whistle, you already all know it's stenoic, so you're talking about as the blood is flowing through those valves, it's not opening all the way. If you're hearing a swish, you're having a backflow. So we're going to do a leaky semilunar, but let's do it the same way. Okay? So the first thing, we're going to start with the same place. The ventricle is about to contract, and the very beginning of contraction, we're going to hear what? Love. Okay? Now, there's no swishing going on, I don't think, because there's not a problem here, right? Okay. So we have love. Now we're going to eject the blood, right, through the semilunar valves. Okay? It's not stenoic. So are we going to hear a sound when we do that? No. Okay? Then you're going to have the semilunar valves close. And what are you going to hear?
Swish.
Dub. Then swish. So, the heart valves close, but then it leaks back, swish. Okay? So on the heart valve, on the regurgitation one, the leaky ones, you hear the sound and then the swish. The sound and then the swish. So lub, dub, swish would mean that the lub was fine, we closed the valves, there was no leakage there, we pumped out fine, not stenoic, and when they closed, dub, swish back into the ventricles. So that's lub, dub, swish. Does that sort of make sense? Do you see how, again, you can check, I mean, I'm only going to have like one of these, and you can memorize that table or guess, that's fine. But what I like about this is, you see how you actually, most of you actually care about this, right? You want the grade, but you're going to be using this layer. You really want to understand blood flow and these heart sounds, not some sort of random things here, besides doing on the test. I actually think by doing this and playing with this, you actually not only just really get the blood flow in these events, but you do get this idea of these heart murmurs, and then when you go on these sites and you're actually trying to identify heart murmurs and all that, they're going to really make sense to you as well. You see when things are happening. Not that you hear a swishy sound, a heart murmur with something leaky. You can actually then localize. Again, there's only 4 choices, right? We're going to have a leaky or stenoic AV valve, or a leaky or stenoic semilunar valve. Yes, ma'am, you have a question?
So murmurs or sound?
Murmurs or sounds, yeah. And so, again, they're really only, if you go on the website, which I recommend you do, that I put up there, you get to hear them. You're not going to hear a whistle. You're going to hear, and there's different kinds, so you're going to hear some slight differences in the difference between the two, but you're not, and you'll be an expert at it.
So for the swish, that's when, I guess it's going back into the ventricles through the semilunar valve, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. For a leaky semilunar valve, exactly right. And that's why you hear the swish. So it closed, dub, and then swish came back. Because I went back in the ventricle, right?
Oh, wait.
It depends on these ones that went out. Okay, this one went back to the ventricle, right? We pumped it out, a little leak back. Okay? If we have, let's just do another, because this is just too much fun, and then we'll stop and make sure you do something else. Let's do a stenoic mitral valve, or mitral valve, how do you pronounce it? Okay? So, we're going to play the game. We start off, of course, with this beginning. So, the first thing we're going to do is start contracting, okay? And what's going to happen is we begin contraction. Lob. Okay? They close okay, right? But I don't think we're going to hear a swish. So, what's going to happen next? We're going to then, what do we do with the ventricles? Well, first we've got to contract, push the blood out, okay, and so we didn't hear anything, that's cool, and then we're going to close them, dub, okay, now, again, so the very beginning of relaxation, we heard dub, right, they close. What happens during the rest of relaxation? Filling, and when it's filling through what valve? AV valve. We're entering the atria. Remember, we don't just fill the atria and then fill the ventricle, right? All through diastole, these valves are open and we're filling from the bottom up. So basically, the very beginning of diastole, we relax and we hear dub. The rest of diastole, we're filling, and we're filling through the AV valves, including the mitral valve. So we're going to hear lub, dub, whistle. Okay? Because as the blood now is trying to flow down here, it's going to be stenoic. So lub, dub, whistle will be corresponding to a stenoic mitral. It could be the other one too. I just want to put that because you have to know the name that's an AV. It's the stenoic AV valve is what you're going to hear. The lub spine, the dub spine, but then as the blood now is filling into diastole, they're trying to get through a stenoic AV valve like mitral valve, and you're going to hear whistle. So lub, dub, whistle. If you go online, what you're going to see, because they actually have, you know, these kind of phonograph things, whatever it is, you're going to see something like you have this, and you'll have this, and then all of a sudden you'll have this continue, versus they'll show you like a real one it looks like, and you'll hear like lub, dub. And so you'll see these murmurs, you know, visually, besides hearing them, but you'll see these marks that are extending these, and you'll hear it, sort of this extra surge, these murmurs. It's sort of cool. But here we're just sort of using these terms. Does everyone sort of get how you can do it if you want? Okay? That I think is useful to actually understand it. You know, one question on it, 2 points. If you want to just memorize those 4 for some reason, because you're memorizing doing things, anatomy, what you want to have a note card, go for it, I don't care. But I actually think this is cool. Yeah.
So the love dub swish,
Which one? Love, dub, swish?
love dub swish, that wasn't a backflow through the AV valve?
No.
It was through the
Semilunar. Because lub, we closed it. If we had it back through the AV valves, it would be lub, swish. Because as soon as we close the valves, that's when you would have backflow. So lub was fine. We pushed it out, no whistling, and then the very beginning, what the semilunar valves close, which is dub. But if it's leaky, swish. It goes back into the ventricles. Swish. Yes.
You can ask us the same questions about the other side of the valve.
Except I'm not going to call it by name. So if you're dealing with this sound, if I use mitral valve, you just have to remember that's you know the left AV. But if the other one, it's going to be the same way if I just give AV valves or semilunar. So I didn't want us to know that one. You know, obviously the semilunar ones are easy to know because it's aortic and pulmonary, and I don't really care about bicuspid, tricuspid things, but I do care just for mitral that it's left AV because that's obviously a lot of major problems are with that. So that much.
So for the stenoic, it's the problem is going to be in between the lub and dub. It's going to be like
What? It depends on where, okay?
Okay.
Because it just depends on, like here, it was after. Because then we started, that's why you've got to, yeah, right,
After was a nitric.
right.
But then the normal one would be what then? Like the first one we did.
Well,
That's just stenoic.
I don't remember what that is. Is that this one? Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's lub, and then stenoic, semilunar means as it's trying to go through the semilunar, that's when you're going to hear the whistle. That's why, you know, if you follow this, if you start here and you get the events and you play with this, then this will become second nature, and you will really understand a lot about blood flow and hearts and all that as well, which is, again, you know, I think, you know, again, because if you try to memorize that list, and you see like my first 5 questions and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? You know, that list is going to jumble in your mind probably, okay? So I actually think you want to try to do things, and again, draw this on your page, practice doing this even on the test. Write all over your test, like all over your test, all this stuff, okay? Don't try to do it in your head unless you've got, you know, again, you're a beautiful mind guy or something, and you see everything, you know, the whole thing in your head or whatever it is or something like that. You see it up on the ceiling. Cardiac output, even heart rate. I like that movie, I'm sorry, I just thought it was cool. Any questions about that? Does that kind of help you on that? Okay. So I'm going to take a few minutes not to talk. You really want, how many people have those extra questions? Okay, how many people start looking at them? Okay, how many people are doing pretty good at them? How many people need help on them? Well, try to work on them and see any more. See what questions you have on them, and we'll make sure that we kind of put partial review up here. How are you doing?
But yeah, I was hoping to lost it because you lost it. It was just very but you got it.
Thank you.
So I'll let you know. Yeah, for sure though. I'll let you know. I'll let you know Saturday or Sunday, but maybe I'll figure out what time. Yeah. What day works for you. Yeah, I'm not like telling, I'm asking you. You're not going out? Then he's leaving so you can wake up back. I left the house.
Right, where does it, where's the heat from? Oh, I didn't read the side. Okay.
How much is it a month? A lot of people do
You can send us a picture of it, or something.
but it's right out. They have a really nice, water provider. Oh, really?
The last time you added
I'm just trying to know
the rating is probably percentage.
but it's like,
Wait, what was
So then it went up, that was the
Why is this stenosis?
oh my God, I just.
Yeah, but this is So this is this.
I got sauce. Oh my God, what?
I'm just gonna.
It has to be like.
But this.
Yeah, I got this.
No, not here. Do this, and then for this one. Okay, so they're right here. Oh, like the guy right here. So you have to say.
Okay, so
I know. Not saying like a shake.
The other basic. You're comparing all three. We have another book too. You can be looking at chapter 12 if you don't have that. There's a chart comparing the differences between skeletal, cardiac, and smooth, and that chart has a lot of things that you'll look at and you'll say that's really different. Okay, very, very strange.
Okay. Yeah. So if you have the beta blockers, so you're gonna, if you have the beta blockers, you're gonna have so, I don't know how to describe it. So, I just put a point. Beta blockers, with the action that's going to happen in terms of like your alpha stuff, is going to be increased, it's still going to be increased blood pressure.
No.
Okay.
That's, we'll put this up, and I'm going to actually do it a little bit. To answer your question more directly, when you do the compensation, it's only going to be the direct effect. Because ultimately, everything else depends on everything. But like if you do...
Like an alpha, I know for the beta one, the heart rate's going to go up, and then the more you're talking about.
Yeah, and then you stop. Because you don't know ultimately, because everything's, you're adding up things. And it won't win, right? What I'm saying is the drug wins you lower blood pressure. But the direct effect of norepinephrine binding beta receptors will cause increased heart rate, increased force, and that's all you know. If you do the other one, you do a beta blocker, okay, so you do the whole thing, you're going to cause vasoconstriction, vasoconstriction to come. Okay. And that's it. But you don't go beyond that as far as anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So just the vasoconstriction is going to be increased?
Yes. And again, there's and so it's the other half of the coin, but you stop right at the direct effect of the neurotransmitter on there, because everything else, first of all, you have to add up, and the drug will ultimately win. But you're trying to compensate. And that's okay, unless all of a sudden, like on those, you have tachycardia, you're concentrating too much, or you have excessive vasoconstriction and you're not getting blood flow. That's when you're like, let's back off on the drug or take another drug so that we don't have this overcompensation. But yeah, for the compensation one, you stop at the direct effect.
Okay, stop at direct effect. Okay, so I can forget venous return.
Yeah.
Instead,
Exactly.
It's just
vasoconstriction. Because ultimately, everything's about effect of it.
Okay.
That's really the important point.
Okay.
Maybe we'll put this up.
I'll tell you this second. I could even the receptor response. Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
Antagonist is synonymous with.
Yeah.
What?
Antagonists are blockers, right? Antagonists, blockers, inhibitors. And remember, too, and I've said this before, but people always still freak out. If you're giving a blocker, you don't 100% block it so the person dies, right? You're decreasing whatever's going on. If you get an agonist, you are increasing.
Okay.
You should.
Let's go ahead and... So, I'll go ahead, because I want to make sure, I think a lot of people have this or getting this. I want to put everybody that's here up to speed that will practice this compensatory thing that we're trying to say, and see if there's any questions as we go. So again, the first thing I'm going to put up here is your 14-point question. Okay. Again, you're going to have low blood pressure. I don't know if it's orthostatic or something else. It doesn't really matter. The low blood pressure is going to trigger the baroreceptors, and I'm going to ask basically where they are, and they are where.
Carotid and aorta.
So aorta and carotid. Now don't forget to put that. I asked that question. Do you want to lose a half a point or a point for something that's stupid? No. Okay? The goal will be to increase blood pressure. And of course, we're going to do that by affecting what? And
Increasing sympathetic, decreasing parasympathetic.
we're going to increase sympathetic, decrease para. Okay? So we have that, and you want that. Now, we're going to want, again, I really would prefer if you do it this way, and most people do, kind of do it sort of systematically in columns like that versus writing sentences, and I've got to like do it, or paragraphs and all this stuff. I usually put those tests like at the very end so I can grade these, and then I'm in a bad mood. I'm like, oh, they better get this right. Okay. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, we're going to need the neurotransmitters and the receptors. You can see the importance of this, I hope now, because we are dealing specifically when you're looking at these drugs of alpha, agonist, antagonist, beta, which are usually beta 1 antagonists and agonists, and even muscarinic antagonists like atropine. Okay, so sort of important. We know the receptors. So we have this again. Parasympathetic only has one branch. This is that double negative thing when we're doing it. So we are going to decrease parasympathetic to where? SA node. And what is the neurotransmitter? And what is the receptor? Muscarinic. Okay, do not forget those. Then we go through, basically, again, hopefully you've drawn this to help you, unless you have it in your mind. When you decrease parasympathetic to the SA node, heart rate. SA node is heart rate. Okay, so we're taking off the negative. That's a hard one, right? Because it's the opposite. We're decreasing an inhibitor because normally parasympathetic, this binding inhibits. So we decrease that. So relatively, we've increased heart rate. If we increase heart rate, and therefore increased blood pressure. I don't care about numbers as much as order. Okay, boom. We're done with para. Okay, we're going to stay on the heart. We're going to increase now. Sympathetic to the, what is the neurotransmitter? Norepi throughout. Okay, so norepi. What is the receptor? Beta 1, beta blockers. Almost all specific for beta 1. We increase sympathetic to the SA node, and what does that cause? And therefore, you're faster than I can do it, and therefore, you have to admit this is fun. Wait till we do the kidney, okay? So, boom, and we're done. This should match, and it does. Okay, now we're going to the, where? What is the receptor? Same receptor. These are where beta 1s are. The SA node and the ventricular muscle, that are basically norepi's binding to. All right, so ventricular muscle, what does it do to the ventricular muscle? What does it cause?
Increases the force.
Increases ventricular force, anything like that that you put. Now, if you increase ventricular force, what do? You're affecting, squeezing, you're decreasing what's left, you're decreasing ESV. If you decrease ESV, what does that cause? More is ejected. If you increase stroke volume, and therefore blood pressure. Don't throw heart rate in, because if we've done that separately, that's a minus half point. Increase stroke volume, because it's only half a point out of 14, but still. Increase stroke volume, therefore cardiac output, therefore blood pressure. Okay? Boom. 2 more columns. We're off the heart. Where are we now? Veins and arteries. Okay, so let's do the veins first, because that's the long one, right? We're going to increase sympathetic to the veins. Again, numbering, because I didn't even put that, right? It's there. I don't care. I want order. We increase sympathetic to the veins. What are the receptor?
Alpha.
All right, so alpha are on the veins and arterioles. Sympathetic to the veins. So whenever you're doing this, you're asking, what did it do to the veins? Vasoconstriction. Now, we're vasoconstricting these veins. Okay? And that's going to cause what? Increase in venous return. Let me talk about this another time for a second here. To remind you that we had a slide on this, is why this is doing this. Okay? We have this idea, there's sort of two types of ways, really. We're going to see this with lungs too, that when we talk about qualities of these vessels. They can be elastic, which means they're going to come back, or they can be compliant, in which they sort of just stay there. So like a balloon versus a sort of a plastic bag. And so the arteries, like the aorta, they're very what? Elastic. Okay, high elasticity. That's how blood pressure happens. You throw it in, they move out, the valve closes, boom. Okay? Veins are normally very compliant, not very elastic. They're actually opposite. So blood comes in and we store it there. So it actually just takes up the blood. So what we're doing here by vasoconstricting is literally just like if you took a plastic bag, but now you sort of made it tighter. You could see, less would stay there, more would go through. That's how we're increasing venous return. We're lowering compliance. You don't have to put that here, but I want you to understand that. Obviously, there's some question involved on that. Remember, this has what? Elasticity or compliance? This has compliance. Try to remember that. Okay. Meanwhile, we've increased venous return. I'm sorry for that. We've increased venous return. Get this out of here. Then what have we done?
Increase EDV.
We've increased, therefore, what we put in. EDV. Therefore, more in, more out. Okay, remember, smooth muscles and these cardiac muscles work the same way. If we stretch them, calcium comes in. What does calcium do to force the contraction for these muscles? Increase. So you're going to squeeze out whatever extra you put in. Frank Starling law. Increase stroke volume. If we increase stroke volume, we have, and therefore, last column, we've increased, our sympathetic is going on to the arterioles, which is causing what? Vasoconstriction again, which is, what follows next? And therefore, increased blood pressure. Okay? 14 points right there, plus we're going to use this for I don't know how many more, plenty.
You have lower blood pressure. All this is going on at the same time?
Yes, like now and now. Okay, so again, these things, as you breathe in and out, your blood pressure changes and this changes. So you're literally tweaking this, at a constant rate. And since it's nervous system, we can put the other one. Remember, nerves are like what? Thousandths of a second. We're talking about delivery of neurotransmitters. So a little more, a little less. Yeah, this is all tweaking constantly. Okay, all at the same time. That's why I think this is just totally cool. Okay, that 100 and something students right now that I'm teaching all these schools actually know this. I actually have taught this. I teach a non-majors class for kids at 7:30 in the morning at San Marcos. I was like, why would you schedule? Hey, you have to take out of your major at 7:30 in the morning. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a lot of people there, right? I get some people there. But I made them. We did cardio. I made them memorize this, but I gave them that's 25 points. Okay, 24th of the test, and if you just put it on there, you'll get it. Almost everyone got it. I'm like, all of these non-majors, I'm like, they know all this about blood pressure. I just think it's like cool. Now guess what I'm doing? I'm doing the kidney. This is a funny story. I'll do it. This just happened today. So I have the student in my Palomar, Miracosta, nursing physiology, and she's actually a kinesiology major, but she's doing it. She's doing okay. She got like an 89, 90, and all that. And so she was basically wrapping this, I guess she plays volleyball, some volleyball player up at San Marcos and doing it. And this volleyball player was saying, yeah, that next week, we're going to be talking about the kidney. This guy's crazy on the kidney. And she's like, really? Who do you have? Because my professor's crazy on the kidney too. And it's like, and so it was like, oh, you have the same class. And they were like, oh my God. So, because I'm known throughout town is that. And this person and she's like, I got 101 on the test. And this person who's in my class that are these tests, she's like, how are you doing that? And I'm like, I told her, no, those tests are a lot easier, okay? I basically give them almost the questions that I'm telling them, and you still have to show up, but the tests are a little bit easier there. But I was just, this kidney thing is like, so anyway, it was pretty fun. Okay, all this is going on at the same time. So we get this, and you're going to put that on your chest right away, right? Okay, we're going to do a compensatory thing too. But let's go ahead and remember this too. Okay? Okay? We have, again, I would just put this on just so we remember. You don't want to make a mistake. alpha, beta 2. We have norepi and epi. Now remember too, we're using this. If you look even at the notes, you know, and nothing's as black and as white as we would like it, okay? But we're going to make it sort of black and white on this. So when we talk about beta 1 receptors and we know where they are, we can see them right here. If you forget, you turn to your last page of your test. Oh yeah, that's where they are. Norepi is going to do what? You know, you don't have to go all the way, but basically, you know, heart rate, stroke volume, cardiac output, you get it. Okay, epi is going to bind to what? Same thing. Because fight or flight, we want more cardiac output. Boom, they're both going to work together. On the alpha, we know where alpha are. Veins and arteries, and that's supposed to, right? And norepi is going to cause constriction to sort of control blood pressure in. And for epi, we're saying nothing. Is that true? No. But is it minimal? Yes. Okay, and I'm not going to try to fool you on that. Right now, we're basically assuming it basically is not effective. Same thing here. Beta 2, norepi's not, but beta 2 are on specific blood vessels, not all of them, specific arterioles, leading to heart, skeletal muscle and liver, a couple other places, but those are the ones. That's when we want to direct blood. Epi's going to bind to the beta 2 and cause vasodilation to lower or to direct the blood. Because really, our fight or flight, we don't want blood pressure to go crazy. We want cardiac output to increase and then direct the blood. They work together. We don't want to do it everywhere. That's why it's nice that the norepi is constricting all of them, sort of at the same level, and that we can open the valves that we want. That one's sort of important. So let's do one of these. Okay? And again, if you haven't read or you're going to read it or you're confused, let's go to what I'm saying. I put it in a paragraph when we do that next page. I'm talking about sort of this idea of hypertension, drugs for hypertension, high blood pressure. You give drugs to lower blood pressure. And the idea of this is, we'll see they're against different receptors. The idea of what I'm saying on this is that it will work, okay? In the sense that it will do what it's supposed to do and lower blood pressure. But anytime that happens, anytime you're saying, okay, here it is at lower blood pressure, you think that's going to happen. In other words, as soon as we lower blood pressure, this kicks in. Okay? It's saying we have just lowered blood pressure, we're going to try to compensate. It doesn't know, hey, this is okay, let it go. It's not going to do that. That's not how our body works. And it's good because what if we did give too much blood pressure medication or was going too low? Wouldn't it be nice that we're trying to compensate? That might save our lives. So compensation is good. Once in a while it might be too much and we'll tweak it down and you guys will help because you'll figure this out. So the idea is whenever we're giving one of those, you're thinking low blood pressure, you think, boom, last page of test. Okay? And the idea of this will be that the drug wins, but this whole thing is going to happen. It can't beat the drug, but we're going to see an effect. So really, you can just quickly do these kind of in general. There's only really, for this, there's only two kind of classes, right? You're either going to have alpha blockers or beta blockers as far as lowering blood pressure. So the key is you take one. You want alpha blockers first? Let's do alpha blockers first. Alpha blockers are blocking the ability, the effectiveness, okay, remember, just not 100%, but decreasing the ability of norepi to bind to alpha receptors. And so whenever you have an antagonist, you're looking for the opposites. So it's going to cause what? Vasodilation, and lower blood pressure. Okay, and it doesn't. Now, we have lower blood pressure. What happens? Boom. This whole thing happens. Baroreceptors are going to respond. They're going to send a message to the brain. We're going to increase sympathetic and para. We're going to release all these neurotransmitters. Okay. Now, is the increased norepi, okay, trying to bind to alpha, does it win? No. I mehave to tell you that. It really doesn't, right? Drugs we have a lot more of them, just like the video showed, like with nicotine, right? They're going to outcompete, so that's not going to happen. We're not changing that. But if we're using an alpha blocker, does that block the ability of norepi to bind to beta 1? No. So this is not going to affect this. The drug doesn't affect this. It only affects the alpha receptors. So when we're increasing sympathetic, so we're going to have more norepi binding to beta 1 receptors. And where do you stop on this? Because we don't know, it's obviously not going to, I guess, and I'm telling you too, this is not going to win. We're trying to compensate, but now all of a sudden we're not going to have higher blood pressure. But when neurepi binds to the beta 1 of the SA node, what does it cause?
Increased heart rate.
And you stop there. And if it's too much, what are we going to call it?
Tachycardia.
Tachycardia. Okay? They actually call this, if you just look online, alpha blockers and contraindications and all that, they call this reflex tachycardia. Because it's a natural reflex to something which is lower blood pressure, like alpha receptors. You're going to have this response. You're going to have an increase in ventricular force, an increase in heart rate. And if it reaches a certain level, it can be dangerous. It could be tachycardia. You're looking for that. If you gave someone that, you're looking to see if this happens. If it's within normal range, you're like, this drug is working fine. We've lowered the blood pressure, and the reflex action is not overcompensating. It's just compensating some. Okay. If not, what do you want to do? Back this off, add a beta blocker. So whenever we're doing this, and I'll answer your question, the idea of these alpha beta is you figure out the primary effect, which will be lower blood pressure, and then you're looking for that this whole thing happen. In the multiple choice, you're looking for the answers that are corresponding to this. You have the answer here. Something which increases heart rate, ventricular force, increased sympathetic, all that's happening. Increase in neurepi, all those are possible choices. The thing is, you're looking on this. Your answers are here. You're looking through those multiple choices. And I'm going to have, A, decreased sympathetic. B, increased heart rate. C, increase parasympathetic. D, all of the above. Okay? Because here comes the crux of the matter, right? My stupid multiple choice questions in which you understand this, but you've got to find it here. You go through each one. You know the right answers are here. You can check it. Okay? I say decrease sympathetic. Is that right? No. I'm always going to have to do that, right? That's wrong. It increases. So don't mess up on that. Okay? That's for some people you know it and you just see it. Wrong. Does it increase heart rate?
Yes.
Okay? That one's true. Of course, we already know it's not all the above, but let's kind of go to it. Does it increase para?
No.
Decrease. So that's false, and of course it's not all the above, so that's the right answer. Okay, so that's what I'm saying is, the answer is here, but then you've got to look at the multiple choice and, match which ones I said, I'm only going to make, I'm going to make some correct and some wrong, or maybe hopefully only one correct, unless I can do an A or a B type thing, okay? Does everyone sort of get that? You always are going to this. I'm sorry, I forgot it. Wait, you have to speak a little louder, right? You can come up and,
The alpha blocker.
Yeah.
So it causes vasodilation and it increases heart rate.
It will lower blood pressure, okay? And as a reflex reaction, it will increase heart rate because of the baroreceptor response.
Okay, so it directly causes vasodilation and increases heart rate.
Yes. Yeah. Now, when you look at what she's doing too, and it's a good point that you bring it out, is when I first gave you these questions, I gave it sort of an essay thing, and you're like, well, what is he really looking for in that? And so, which is sort of it. I wanted you to kind of basically realize it's doing this, and then I have the next one as a response. You're going to see this. I hate open-ended questions like that because what am I looking for? That won't exist on this test. What will exist will be the ones underneath that are like the multiple choice ones. So that's a really good point, that you actually put that out. Because again, where do you stop on my question? Yeah.
Would an agonist work this, because on the beta blocker, the baroreceptor response, so let's say with the alpha blocker, the baroreceptor response would be to increase the betas. But would it work the same as an agonist? If it's an alpha agonist, would the baroreceptor response still be to affect the other ones?
But it would be the opposite way. And that's why, in other words, if you gave an alpha agonist, let's just work it through, okay? Okay, so an alpha agonist is going to do, again, what? What is it going to do here? No, let's calm down. Alpha agonist, okay, because it's actually not, right? Alpha agonist is going to basically do the same thing as this, right? So you just read through. It's going to cause vasoconstriction and basically raise blood pressure. Maybe you want to do that, Sometimes we want to raise blood pressure. Some, believe it or not, it's not mine, but some blood pressures are too low, okay? Not when I'm talking about the kidney or stuff, okay? So, but that's what happened, right? Okay, I forgot who I'm talking to. You're right. Okay, so we have raised blood pressure. Okay, for better or worse, let's say we have raised blood pressure. Does something react to a change in blood pressure? Valve receptors. What are they going to try to do? Lower blood pressure. So it's not that chart, but they're going to decrease sympathetic and increase parasympathetic. Okay? And is it going to work on these? No, but it will on this. And so now we're going to decrease sympathetic. So heart rate's going down, cardiac, so you're going to compensate the other way, but it is going to compensate. So we're playing mostly with this chart, but remember, the other one, the response for high blood pressure, the goal will be to lower it. We'll reverse this. Everything just gets reversed. Now, I'm not going to make you draw that or anything. I mean, this is going to be, because we're going to use this majorly, this is what you're going to draw, but does that make sense? Okay? So you're always going to have, as soon as you change blood pressure by any of these medications, you're going to have this thing kick in. Okay? Bottom line, it's going to kick in. Okay? So, and again, the idea too, if we did a beta blocker, we're going to lower this response happens, and we're going to have an excessive response on the alpha receptors, which is going to be what? Constriction. Again, might be okay, but you know, if your skin's turning white and becoming cold, maybe we've constricted too much, so we've got to look at it.
With the beta blockers, it causes vasoconstriction and bradycardia?
Well, wait. The beta blockers, okay, are gonna prevent that. So they're gonna decrease heart rate, could cause bradycardia, and decrease ventricular force, right?
Okay.
We're decreasing that, and decrease blood pressure. So then we're gonna have an overcompensation and cause vasoconstriction, right?
Right.
So it's the primary effect and then the secondary effect.
But are we paying attention to the secondary effect, like only, or
No,
could
both.
we should?
We'd have to pay attention to both.
To both.
So then, the answer for number 10 would be both.
I can't remember 10.
It was about the beta blockers.
We gave a beta blocker. Okay, we gave a beta blocker, right? Okay, so let's look at that and give me the choices. A was what?
Bradycardia.
Okay, and I'll qualify this by the way. So bradycardia.
B was vasoconstriction of arterioles and veins.
Okay, vasoconstriction of arterioles and veins.
C
is,
was increased cardiac output.
And D is
Both A and B.
both A and B.
And E is both B and C.
Okay. E is, you know,
B and C.
both B and C. We all love these. I know. I know. I'm sorry. Okay, but the reason I want to do this is you go through each one. Okay. Now, again, you look at this, and it's going to be your answer. But I just want to sort of go in. So you look at it now. To be honest, you know, do we know it's going to be all the way to the level of bradycardia? No, but we know it decreases heart rate. I'll make that clear on the test. But here, the answer would be yes. Okay, because the beta blocker will decrease heart rate. Everybody sees that, right? So this is true. Okay, so yes. Would it cause a vasoconstriction of the arterioles and veins?
Yes.
Yes, because it's compensated. Okay, so that's yes. Will it increase cardiac output? No. See, this isn't affecting cardiac output per se. We're saying the drug wins. And if the drug wins, we're decreasing this, we're decreasing cardiac output, and we're decreasing blood pressure. You've got to remember, drug wins.
So if the drug wins, the arrows go down.
These arrows go down.
Okay.
And again, here we stop at the direct effect of the neurotransmitter there. We don't know, this might be in competition, but it's going to lose. Okay, the drug wins, so we don't even go beyond that. So all we know is that we will cause this response. Therefore, more norepi will bind to the alpha receptors, and they will vasoconstrict more than they were. So it's A and B. It does increase cardiac output. Okay, and so it's not C. And so the correct answer is this. Okay, but that's the answer to that. Yes.
So to be successful in those kinds of questions, you have to know and there's going to be a reflexive response.
Yes, and it's going to be on your last page. That's why I'm saying, and everyone probably got that in here, or almost has it, right? And you're going to put that on. You're going to, almost all of these things, if you look even the questions, involve going back to that page, and the answer is somewhere on that page, exactly. You're looking at the primary effect and then the reflexive effect. If for some reason, now you could come up to me, Okay, let's say you have a question, you're really sort of confused, and if I can clarify it sometimes, if it's a little unclear on that, I'll definitely do that. So I'll give you information as long as I don't think you're supposed to know it, And don't, again, the only thing that you'll see, and I'll get that a little irritating me, is when, look, you're like, give me your reasoning. Look, I think I know, it's like, I can't define your reasoning. All I can do is if you got a specific question, then I can, I can try to answer it. But I know what your reasoning on things. These questions are pretty good. They've been sort of, I've done them a lot, so they're not, most of them are pretty unambiguous, okay? They're going to be direct answers. But in general, the idea will be, because you can see that's why I'm doing these questions. You're going to be seeing the primary effect, you're going to look on here and look at the secondary effect, okay? And we can do that with also beta 2, right? We can actually do that over there and see this effect.
The agonist of beta, which is the opposite?
Yeah.
Can you do it?
But let's wait on that, okay? Does everyone understand this basic thing? Yeah.
Beta blocker affects both beta 1 and beta 2?
Beta blockers are primarily, and for us for sure, affecting beta 1.
Okay.
Okay? They're more, beta blockers are more selective, especially the ones that I'm talking about, right?
Think about a beta 2
No,
blocker
until I give you that. Okay? But we can do that, but I'll say beta 2. Okay, let's do one of those. I don't care which one.
That's the one that you have,
That's the one I
beta
asked.
2 agonist. The beta 2 agonist.
So you want to do that one? Okay. Okay, let's do that one. Okay, so a beta 2 agonist. Okay, so a beta 2 agonist is an agonist do the same thing or the opposite? Okay, the same thing. And so it's going to cause what? Vasodilation of the, yeah, exactly. Okay? Now when you do that, okay, what are you're basically doing what? You're over here, right? And you're doing what? You're opening this up.
You're lowering blood pressure.
Doesn't it seem like you'd be lowering blood pressure? All of a sudden, your blood's moving, you heard this, and we have an exercise, I think our blood's moving to the skeletal muscle, and again, I think I did excessive amount to sort of make sure, right? I sort of made it like that. So, the key is, that will cause a lowering of blood pressure. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
And when you think lower blood pressure, what do you think? When you, I want to emphasize, this is what I'm saying. You don't think about like something else, okay? Whenever you lower blood pressure, what Mike's mind is doing is you go to your page, your 14-point question. This is the response to that, okay? The initial effect will be to lower blood pressure. Maybe we didn't want to, and for this time, maybe we want this to actually happen. And so all of this is going to happen. And now, none of this is being blocked. Okay. Now remember, we're making the drug now win. Okay, we gave an excessive amount, so blood pressure is still going to be too low. But all of these things are going to happen. Okay, because we're not blocking beta 1, we're not blocking alpha. So we're going to have, and again, you just have to find the answer. It could just be, increase in sympathetic, or it could be an increase in norepi, or it could be an increase in heart rate, cardiac output, vasoconstriction. All of those are there, and you have them here. You're looking at the multiple choice and seeing which one is true, which one is false. The answer is right on your page. Anytime we lower blood pressure, you're going to have a baroreceptor response. And again, the one you're going to give, I'm not going to all of a sudden trick you and make you do the opposite on the back page because it doesn't fit. Because most of the drugs I'm giving you, the drugs we're really using, most of them are the idea of, they're for hypertension. But in that you end up then lowering blood pressure to have this reaction. There are others that we'll talk about maybe in there, but that's not good. The major one is going to be something causing lowering blood pressure, okay? In this case, it was an agonist. In this case, alpha or beta blockers. And we can do calcium channel blockers too. But the idea of that will be that when that happens, you go to this, you have the answers right in front of you. Doesn't have to be in your head. The answers are here. All you've got to do, and this is a trick, and again, I know this isn't real life. Life is not, you don't walk out into your job and like, well, we have a multiple choice question for you, well, what to do next, okay? I understand that. And multiple choice are hard, and they're not, I know a ton of people who know the material and studying and don't do well in the multiple choice, and it's just the way it is. I've got to do this because that is what you're going to be having, and it's just something that we do, okay? It will help you if you make it through because you'll be able to do it in the future. I'm sorry, I don't really like to torture students with it, but the bottom line is strategy. And the strategy for this is, like, you go in like, I know the answer, it's here. I'm going to check each one. Mike's giving us a limited time. If I gave you 50 minutes for this, You can throw me off there, okay? Because that is way too hard. Try not to throw me off later. The idea is you go through each one, and I'm going to have it where you know, there's right answers and the wrong answers, and you put true, false. If there's only one, you find the one that's right. If you write two true, false, and I have an A and B like that, then you put that answer. So don't automatically assume all the above. You know me by now, right? I mean, I put all the above all the time when only one's right. So you go through each one, the answer, and I don't remember which one I did that, right? So what are my choices for the beta 2 agonists?
Increase BP and parasympathetic stimulation.
And remember, you got to look at each one. So increase BP and para, 2.
A decrease in PR and a decrease in BP.
That seems really good. Okay, what's 3?
An increase of release of norepinephrine and heart rate.
Okay.
D is B and C, and E is all of the above.
Okay, and E is all of the above. Most people have this. Okay, so when you have these, you got, if one half of it's right and one half's wrong, it is wrong. Okay, and we have this. Is it going to increase BP? Okay, boom. Okay, so remember, because the drug doesn't win, or the compensatory factor doesn't win, the primary effect was lower BP. Okay, as far as parasympathetic is going to go, that's going to be false, right? Because the answer is going to be, or do I have that? It actually, yeah, it is going to be, that part's true, but it doesn't matter, it's false. Is it going to decrease peripheral resistance? Is it going to decrease blood pressure?
Quick question on that. We are decreasing blood pressure. And in doing that, we're decreasing peripheral resistance. But the compensatory effect, if we're looking at the alpha side to the veins and arteries, is to raise peripheral resistance.
But it doesn't win. That's why the whole point, and that's why I try to keep emphasizing that when you're doing this, drug wins.
Gotcha.
Okay, and maybe there's some cases in the real world where it doesn't, but overall, drug doses, outbeat what we release here. But you'll see that's why you stop at the direct effect.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then it's possible something might happen, but basically you stop there.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why it wouldn't increase peripheral resistance, but it does increase the vasoconstriction, right, of those arterioles and veins, the alpha ones. Okay, so so we got true. Does it increase the release of norepinephrine? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Don't just look down here. It's the whole thing. It's going to increase sympathetic, which means more norepinephrine. So that is true. Is it going to increase heart rate? Yes. Now you're to norepinephrine binding to that. So that's true as well. So the answer is B and C. This was A, B, and C, and D. Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm just really confused with something.
Yes.
So for the increased blood pressure and parasympathetic stimulation, it wouldn't do that. Either of those wouldn't increase blood pressure or
Well, which one was the pair? I don't remember. Up or down?
the first one.
I know, but
Well,
I
it was increase.
increase.
So I know it wouldn't increase parasympathetic stimulation, but why wouldn't it increase blood pressure?
Because we're saying that the primary effect is what wins, right? The compensatory effect doesn't. So when you give a beta 2 agonist, you're vasodilating, you're lowering blood pressure here. You're directing the blood out, and that's why you're going to have
So
this
you're not
response.
looking at the chart necessarily right then.
Right, no, right, yeah, in this case, because we weren't on alpha or beta 1, in this case we were looking just at specific, we're looking at the figure, but it's not this chart, because this is only alpha and beta 1. We're looking at beta 2 and saying it's vasodilating, and therefore over here is where it is, it lowers blood pressure. And then, boom, here's the response. And you're looking for whatever the right answer is. Do you see, it's
That's like critical thinking.
this is critical thinking. Okay, I mean, this test is hard. It's curved, but it's hard. People that get 102s on this test, and there'll be people that get 102s, they don't walk out and like, that was the easiest test I ever took. They walk out with a headache. So everyone's going to have a headache, okay? And it's just the way it is, okay? And by the way, sometime this semester, it happens every so often, students review, I have to hand out these things, payback, and you can write how horrible my tests are and all that, you can do whatever you want, so to hear it. So you have that, plus you got Raymond Professor, but no one reads that, except, so. After a hard test, though, I look at it to see, I really, kiss anybody off, yeah. well, yeah, if we want to increase it, yeah, it's this.
So, I mean,
A is true,
but it just has, the effect is not great.
so it doesn't. We're not saying the compensatory effect will try to raise blood pressure, okay? We're saying the drug itself, what does it do? Lowers blood pressure, okay? So that part that's why I have to keep making that. Otherwise, it really is confusing. You've got to sort of just have that notion that when you look at the primary effect, that it's lowering blood pressure, the drug wins. This is trying, so you're not going to have it where now your blood pressure is raised. You're going to have the attempt, the goal to raise blood pressure, and we'll see the effects of that. And that's the effects. That's where you're looking for when you're saying we got to switch the drug, because it's the side effects by this if it goes too far that become the problem. Again, this is good for us to have this fail-safe system. But if it overcompensates because of individual drug dose, etc., you've got to back off, and now you know what is causing it. Someone comes with a tachycardia on this, you're like, well, what's causing that, all that, and you know he's on this drug, or the person on the drug, you're like, it's become like, oh yeah, it's a reflex tachycardia, and it's not something you memorize. You actually understand from this. That's my goal. Yeah.
So, when we're talking about the alpha agonist, so
We're gonna do an alpha agonist now, or what?
I'm just saying, like, when you're talking about the alpha agonist,
Yeah.
it's still gonna vasoconstrict, right?
No, the alpha agonist. Yeah, alpha agonist is going to
It's
vasoconstrict,
still
right?
gonna constrict, but the beta is gonna respond the opposite, right? Because
Right.
you're only working with alpha,
Right.
even though it's an
So
agonist.
you're going to do the opposite of this, and that's going to end up causing to lower heart rate and cardiac output to compensate. Because we just raised blood pressure. Now, in that case, we're going to want to lower it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah.
I don't understand why, for the beta 2 agonist, how you could increase your release of norepi and at the same time increase your parasympathetic stimulation.
I don't think we do. Where do we increase
Well,
our para?
if you said it was true, like A, the increase in blood pressure and parasympathetic stimulation, you said only the increase in para was true, but
The,
the was not. Like in-
Yeah.
So-
You're gonna or am I doing that wrong? We have to make sure. You're going to decrease para. So maybe I said that wrong.
So then that's like
It's
A
wrong,
is
wrong.
wrong completely,
Yeah,
wrong,
wrong, wrong,
not
wrong,
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 true.
yeah.
Okay,
Wrong.
okay. So
What else is
that
on
makes
there?
a big difference.
So what else? What other questions on that
Can
that
do
we're
local
going to?
control.
Calcium blocker.
Calcium blocker,
While we're on blocker.
local control. Okay, so now again, if some people are leaving, yeah. Oh yeah, thank you. There's blood typing problems that were at the end because I used to put that on this. It's not on it, so you don't have to worry about blood typing. We'll put that in some lab quiz coming on, and anything in chapter 24 when we're supposed to do
Also on
it.
the extra question,
No blood typing. Thank you. I put a note online on that.
Like an extra 2 questions, those are not.
Exactly, because I didn't take it off. Same thing on the study questions. You'll notice study questions from chapter 24. If you look through the whole thing, obviously we're just not covering that right now, so you don't have to worry about
No
that.
antibody stuff, right?
No antibody stuff, no blood typing stuff. Now, let's actually, before I even do this, because again, some people are going to go, and that's fine. Let me talk about two things. Let me talk about two things that are on there that are like completely new, okay? That we didn't talk about, and that's why, again, why is it valid? Because I say it, because I put it on there, okay? So, we're going to be talking about hypovolemic shock, and you're like, we didn't talk about that. Well, we're talking about it now, okay? Or else you look it up. First of all, what is hypovolemic shock? What does hypovolemic mean? Hypo, less. So you've lost blood, and so that's basically it. And you go into shock, okay? Or you're beginning to go in shock. So I put symptoms up that are there that you kind of, and again, I have answers on this, but I like going through it. We can go through and figure out why. And most of this applies to exactly what we're doing, okay? And then the other is slightly a little different. And so the first set of symptoms were, okay, you have someone hypovolemic shock, and the pulse is weak and rapid, okay? And let's take those specifically separately, okay? Well, first of all, when you first think of this, again, since we want to apply it to this, overall, you have blood loss. What does that affect?
Blood pressure.
It doesn't affect blood pressure. Again, that's where we're playing right now. So we have decreased blood pressure. We have a blood loss. Okay, and of course, by the way, as soon as we decrease blood pressure, what do you think?
You decrease heart rate.
No, you don't think of this. You think locally. You think of this whole thing. Whenever you see that, jump up and you'll know and remember what it is. Okay, you think of this whole response. You just lower blood pressure. This whole response happens immediately. Okay, so. No, we're not opposite. No, we're doing this.
Oh, no.
Okay? Okay? We have low blood pressure, and this time because we have blood loss, this whole response happened. Are we all on that same page now? Yeah. Okay, so now we're looking at, and again, all of us have, we're looking at symptoms now. And so we have a weak and rapid pulse. Well, why rapid?
Because it's trying to bring your blood pressure back up.
And therefore, this is on the list. This is on your last page. Increase heart rate. Okay? You're trying to bring your blood pressure back up. You're going to do this whole thing, including contractile force and heart rate. So the pulse is going to be rapid. Heart rate's trying to do it. Now, weak. Why weak?
Because there's not enough contractile force.
It's sort of, this one's, again, it's a little, everyone's because like everyone's thinking like this crazy way, okay? I mean, like all the thing, it's like, and yes, me. I'm thinking, the idea is, when you're feeling your pulse, you're feeling sort of the strength of how much blood is there, right? You've lost volume. You're not going to have as much going through the tube. It's going to be weak because there's simply not as much fluid pushing through. Okay, so that's sort of what why it's weak. It's rapid, it fits in right here, but it's weak just because you've lost volume. It's not going to be a strong pulse. You just can't. Okay, you're going to try to compensate for it, but you've lost blood, so you're going to have a weak pulse, especially if you're going into shock. So weak because there's simply not enough blood to sort of push it up as high. Rapid because of the response. Okay, what's the second one? Oh, I love this one. Okay, the cold and clammy skin is really cool. Okay, we're going to do this. I think I mentioned to some people in office hours, the reason I like this is I had this firefighter for a student a couple semesters ago who's actually EMT, and I always go, what did you do? They save lives because he's coming in after all this, and so the guy was cool. But he again, whenever I get from people out like you guys who are out in the real world, whether it's nursing and all that, and what really they look for without necessarily knowing, he's like, the first thing we look for are skin signs. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. And so here's some skin signs of, hypovolemic shock, cold and clammy. And this is interesting because it seems opposite. So why cold? Because that one's going to fit us.
There's no thermoregulation.
Let's apply it to this. We're going to have excessive vasoconstriction, right? Because we're trying to keep the blood in, and this is the natural reaction. So are we going to get as much blood flow and as much thermal flow to the skin? No. It's going to stay here because, again, we're going to have this major constriction to keep it there, okay? But this is a baroreceptor response, right? Vasoconstriction. And we've lost a lot of volume, so we've got a lot of vasoconstriction to try to keep the blood pressure at least where we need it to go, okay? That's cold. Now, clammy, now we're talking about, like, sweat. Now, usually, if you're cold, you don't sweat. It's when you're hot. So here's the interesting thing. The idea is, and this is the only way you know this is if you know it or if you're listening, okay? Or if you read the answers. I put the answers on. But we are stimulating the sympathetic system. And right now we've talked about the sympathetic is affecting all these things. It branches everywhere. And one sympathetic response, so and again, you think a fight or flight idea too, is to sweat. Okay? If you're in a dangerous situation, which is sort of this idea of sympathetic and even an epi, it actually triggers sweat glands. Okay? How do you know that? I'm telling you, okay? and the key with that is, that's why it's clammy. And that's why...
Because of fight or flight?
All this, because the sympathetic, in other words, sympathetic and the epinephrine are responding, because this is your life. This is not your riding a bike, or even the bear. This is your life, you react that way. Most of it's working out, but as it's overextending now, one of the, let's say, side effects, because it's just one of the effects, is you can cause sweat glands. It will stimulate sweat glands. If you actually look, we have sympathetic innervation, also submitted to on sweat glands. So this type of emergency reaction can cause you to sweat. So you have cold skin, but we've initiated sweat, and so now you have, that's why it's sort of sweaty and clammy. And I never like knew that, or I think that's really cool. You can see why shock's really bad, right? This is the opposite of what you want, right? You are actually, first of all, making it colder and also losing water. You don't want to lose water. So this is where it's like, I think I'd want to take care of this right away. You can see the body is sort of, it's losing, shock, you're losing control. You're losing homeostatic control quickly. And so you have to sort of restore it right at that point. But that's why you can have cold and clammy skin. So the clammy, the cold refers to, the change in blood pressure. The clammy is just a further reaction of the sympathetic system that goes throughout. Because we're only giving part of it. There's going to be, and if you go to nursing, all these other schools, you are going to talk about all the other symptoms that are caused by an increase in sympathetic throughout the body, and the other effects of that. Here, of course, we're staying here. Does that make sense, though? Cold and clammy. And then the other one, I think I have urine.
Reduced urine.
And again, we'll go to the kidney. That makes sense, right? We're not going to, it's not time to get rid of water. The kidney is going to figure out, and we'll show you how in a couple of weeks, basically that you conserve water. That's, that's just a side note as preview to the kidney. Okay? That's the idea. So that's why I want you to know hypovolemic shock, and I want you to know that information. I did put it online so you can look at it again, too. But I just think it's sort of cool to know that. The other one that was different, and then we can do whatever. Again, I'm here for as long as... But the other one I put on there, which I thought was cool, I know it's like, stop, Mike, but it's sort of cool, is we get to revisit drugs. Okay? And so it was so cool when I saw this. This is like the drug semester for me. I'm like, man, more and more drugs, okay? And so... obviously because of Breaking Bad, and it's really hard to watch TV now, by the way. It's like, nah, that sucks, So, I don't know what to do. But anyway, you won't be watching any TV next 5 days anyway, so it's not a problem. So, we talked about heroin and nicotine, or what, cocaine and heroin, right? Oh, we did nicotine here? Cocaine and nicotine. And of course, it's kind of heroin away too, but cocaine and nicotine, basically, we cause more dopamine, basically, right? And we knew that. Okay. Now the interesting thing, especially related to cocaine, is the idea that for these drugs, they also prevent or decrease epinephrine reuptake and norepi. Okay. So especially norepi because we're doing neurotransmitters. So that means not only are you going to have more dopamine around and have all those effects, you're going to have more norepi. Okay. So we're talking about this. Okay. More norepi. So you're going to actually have, don't worry about that. We're going to have a greater effect of norepinephrine, okay? Basically when you're on these drugs, okay? So some of the symptoms are the following. Well, what would you expect on that? What would you expect when you're looking here? Force, heart rate, boom, okay? And we're putting the heart under a lot of pressure. It needs oxygen, okay? And the oxygen is supplied by the coronary arteries. And again, we can have some of that effect, but overall, what are we also going to be doing? Vasoconstricting. And if you are limiting blood flow to the heart when you need it, okay, it's going to cause a little pain, okay, which is angina, and could cause damage by not getting enough oxygen, so ischemic damage. And that's why some of the symptoms, we saw that drug video where the guy just dropped over, okay, right? We saw that one, right? Yeah. But in this case, there's some truth to it where you are going to have this idea of why you're going to have accelerated heart rate and contractile force, because it's literally preventing or decreasing, norepi reuptake, just like we talked about before. So that means you're going to have a greater effect of all this. So you're going to have this. And the key is it affects a lot of other parts too, but when we're thinking about the heart, we're going to put the heart under more strain. It needs more blood supply, but we're also restricting it as well by this way. And we'll try to compensate with some epinephrine. But the key is it will do this. And so we'll have this vasoconstriction. You can start having angina, heart pain, and this idea of actually getting up to a heart attack, ischemic. Okay? And so to treat it, the actual treatment is put up there. There's NO, it's not no. People are like, what is NO? It's nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator.
And so when you vasodilate, you decrease
You
blood
won't.
pressure.
We don't worry about blood pressure. We're talking about the blood supply, oxygen supply going to the heart. Right now it's been restricted. We're going to vasodilate, so now more blood can go to the heart and you have less of this heart pain, etc. And so that is sort of one of the treatments for these side effects of that drug. So sort of look these up, and they sort of made sense to what we were studying, and so we put them in. Okay, I'll stop from that too, okay? I know, I mean, it's like we do have a lot of information, but just all this information for you guys and for me, I actually think, it's good. It's sort of stuff that makes sense that you want to know. Right, go ahead. Yeah. It's because when it comes down to these drugs, they affect different, when we make it like it's a war pathway or that, they're affecting a lot of different centers in the brain. And again, sometimes you stimulate inhibitory ones, that might be for sort of, you know what I mean? So, you stimulate, things are really more complex than we make it, so. Like alcohol is a depressant, but it makes people talk more. Because it lowers the emission. So, it's sort of
Calcium blocker.
yeah.
Would that
Are we doing the osmotic pressure thing?
You got a question back there with the hand up, but.
I have a question about, so the pacemaker and contractile action potentials, if you were to put a calcium channel blocker on both of them, I'm under the impression they just both would be polarized and cause the action?
No. Let's do calcium. We'll answer your question by just doing it. So, what I have you do on those extra questions is, again, what I'm trying to